All right, welcome to Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 236 for March 2026, and it is an Open Lines Friday, and things are already going wrong, but I'll explain that in a minute. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, and this is an event that we do every Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time, where we get together and talk about Plant and App, talk about the projects that we're working on, and how we're overcoming the challenges of those projects. We record all of these and put them on YouTube. So youtube.com/plantanapp. You can get there. Hear all previous 235 episodes, and after today, you'll be able to have access to even this one. You should subscribe so that you get a notification as soon as they're drop. We run this agenda week by week. We stop and say hello because we're a friendly group, and then we'll do around the campfire. We always do anything first call or anything you submit. So whatever you want to talk about comes first, and then after that, we'll look at some of the other things like contributions to our campfire website or the other things that are going on within Plant and App. After an hour or so, we'll drop uh, the recording and go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we hang around for a few more minutes and just enjoy each other on a personal level. So do jump in. You can show and tell. You can use the chat window, whatever you want, but we do hope that you'll engage. This is the email address that you can use to submit a topic in advance. If you do that, I'll do a little bit of research, put it on the agenda, if you'll give me enough time to do that for the meeting. As I said, I'm Dale Warner, and I'll say hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, thank you.
Indeed.
So I alluded to things going wrong for reasons unknown. Zoom is not offering me the opportunity to turn off the waiting room. So hopefully I don't leave anybody hanging out in the waiting room as we go on and talk today. But glad that you're all here. We start with you. What's going on?
I have what might be a embarrassingly simple issue. Um, Normally, for doing conditional type things, I have an action and I put the uh, the test in the condition line, pretty much everywhere. And then, strangely enough, I've not had a situation where I need to test the same condition several times. And I thought, well, I'll just create a, is condition kind of a variable. And then thought, okay, well, what's actually happening in a create and update token action? Is it doing the condition in the value, or is it just taking the condition thing that I put in, something greater than something or like that, or something equals something, and then just processing it at uh, when I say, is condition. Um, so can I just create a variable in a, like for instance, time? I have a situation where I have, if the person is too late, I've got an expiration time, date and time, and so I've got a, is late, and then the token is, you know, it, time is uh, whatever the thing would be. Uh, Time variable is greater than get date now or daytime now,
Mm-hmm.
or that kind of thing. And so is the if you put in is late there, is the update token action creating the if you instead of putting true there, if you put a actual condition, let's
Yes.
say the value is expire time. So the expire time greater than daytime now. Right, like that. evaluated right there, or is it evaluated when I do the condition using the show conditionally?
Sure. So when you're the answer is yes. This is typically evaluated immediately. So you're on a click handler, meaning somebody's clicked a button, and you can create is late as a context token. And so long as you can express something that returns true or false here, um, that true or false value is going to be stored in is late. And then subsequent actions, any kind of actions, like an execute actions block or anything else, could be conditional on uh, is late or not is late. And so this is a clean pattern to, especially if you're going to use it multiple times. It's a nice clean pattern to um, store this token or create this token based on something and then use it so that you don't sprinkle this, whatever this expression is, throughout your actions.
Great. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I wasn't sure. I hadn't actually gotten to the point where I needed to use it, but I was just thinking about it because it just popped up the other day.
Yep. So, so long you should do testing to make sure that whatever expression that you put here returns either true or false. It could also be 0 or 1. And then that value gets stored into is late, and um, and then you can use it elsewhere, any place that you need to test is late, which is a nice way too of simplifying conditions because you might have some other things going on like um, is valid, and so you could have a token that defined whether or not it's valid for them to be doing that thing that returns true and false and is late. So now you're referring to them in easy to understand words, right? You get these tokens correct, and then your conditions read simpler.
Exactly. Great. Yep.
So the case that you mentioned where you don't want to repeat it several places, that's certainly a good one. And then the case for clarity can also be made.
Makes sense. Right.
Um, there's a um, there's kind of just like anything else in life, there's always exceptions, right? This number of recursions comes into play. It always defaults to 1, and so this thing gets evaluated. So long as your recursions are is 1 or higher, this thing gets evaluated and stored here. If you put a 0 here, then this thing doesn't get evaluated and gets stored here. So now you have these characters in your is late instead of true or false in your is late. So you're just make sure you don't override that.
That brings up an interesting point. Um, if you first created a token called current time, and you set it to daytime now, and then right below that, the second token that you created was is late, and the token value is expire time greater than current time. Do you need
The
to change the number of recursions in that case?
No, the place uh, so any tokens that you have in here, like if you did what you just said and had created a current time token above, the tokens that you see here are going to get evaluated. The issue comes in when after evaluation you still have a token. So if current time evaluates out and has a token in it, then uh, you might need to up your recursions. So the most common place that the place where I've used this one the most is when think about if you have if you have an email template and the uh, the email template is going to get expanded, um, and the email token template has tokens in it, so that you leave a place for first name and last name and whatever content you have. So you might bring in you might be referring to getting the template for as a some kind of a function that uh, um, maybe you created a token for it, and the email template has all the tokens in it. So the first time, if you only do one recursion, template now has whatever the uh, definition of the template is with tokens unexpanded. If you do that, then the first recursion template gets uh, the template with things unexpanded, and then it does it again, and so anything that matches a token gets expanded. So it's a pretty limited use case where you need to change this, and to your direct question, no, you wouldn't have to change it because current time
Got it.
has a good value.
That makes sense.
Nice.
Can
Thank you.
I ask something on this? Because
Sure.
I'm curious and somewhat confused, and I just want a clarification. That is late that you have there, expire time greater than current time. From my experience and understanding, that will never get evaluated. That would become whatever expire time is with a greater than sign and whatever current time is, and that's as far as it'll go.
You're right. And I actually kind of skipped over that, so thanks for bringing me back. This um, this token, whatever you put here, if it's a token, it ha the presumption is what I said was it has to evaluate to true or false, so that is late gets a value that you can use later. But and this is not going to, as you point out, it's not going to be evaluated um, as a condition would. So this would end up with two different expire time and a greater than sign and current time put into it. So you have to use some kind of a token that will evaluate to true or false.
Okay, that was my confusion because I was like looking at the way it is right now, the assumption is that expire time greater than current time, and then you'll get a true false that gets put into is late. And I'm like, that from my understanding, that's not what will happen. It'll just give you the equation as
Hmm.
text into the variable is late. It's not going to give you a true false.
That's absolutely correct.
I'm
And
happy to
Okay.
hear that clarification because I thought I was learning something new. I had never
That's
done
what I thought.
that
I was
before.
like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, did something change? I said, because to my knowledge, that wouldn't happen. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
learning something new here. So I was like, I need clarification.
Well, I'm
so you
glad
would
I brought it
probably,
up.
yeah. So you'd probably have to define some kind of a token where you could give it two values that um, would compare and return back true or false. Um, yeah, I did. I shorthand skipped past that
Well,
one.
in your defense, Dale, you did say the string should evaluate to true or false. Just say,
Yeah. Thank you for the defense.
yeah.
Okay. So you should spend some time playing over here in tokens to find something that accomplishes what you want, a time comparison. And there's probably something, if we go out to Handy Dandy Campfire site, I think there's some comparison things that,
Or
uh,
just put that in the condition of the create token.
Well, something like that. Well,
no,
that, yeah, I've done that too. But the problem is doing something like that, you have to have two create
Yeah.
tokens then.
Yeah,
One
but
for
that's usually
each
how I
one.
handle it as well.
Yeah, me
Usually,
too.
yes, but if
Yeah.
you have something that can actually be expressed as a number, you can use math. There's a
Mm-hmm.
math token. So
Mhm.
let's say, for argument's sake, if you took the date time and whittled it down to, like, let's say a ticks value and did a math of which one is greater than the other, you will get a true, you should get a
0
true
or
false
1.
out of that. Yeah, 0 or 1. So in something like that, yes. If it's text, no, you won't be able to do that. But if it's a math thing, you should be able to do it with
That's working too
do
hard.
math.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a- and my
So,
uh,
so I think Dale, it might be worth just, for anybody who watches in the future, just show that if you take that what you have highlighted right now and move it into the condition, and then you can set the value of is late to the word true, then you have right. And now you have a is late token that can be used on conditions. And you would only use this one create update tokens for establishing the is late token with that condition.
With the caveat of you would have to have a second one that also equates to false.
Right. Yes, you have to establish it.
Sometimes.
Yeah, establish it as false first, and then yeah, right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
one is giving the default value and then one will update it in a certain situation, because if you
Under a
don't do that,
condition.
then your is late really just doesn't exist. And if you try to do a not is late or something like that, you'll crash.
Yeah.
so we start out
Right,
with
so-
setting is late to false, and then second one that uses the condition. This is probably just for clarity.
Actually, this is something that has hit me so many times, and it's always bugged me that I've had to use create update tokens 2 times to do something like this.
Me too.
And since we're here talking about it and it just popped up and it thought just popped in my head, would it be feasible to add a condition in in addition to, let's say, where it is right now for the whole entire thing, but each individual variable that you add to that to have a condition for each token to say whether or not that token gets evaluated?
It probably is, but I don't anticipate seeing us go that way.
Because
It's
to me, that would be so much easier and cleaner to see one create update that you define your variables. And like, for example, is late, you can do an is late is false, and then right underneath do an is late is true, and with a condition of if expire time is greater than date time now. So you have one create update token and it does it all for you, as opposed to having a whole bunch of separate actions.
I understand what you're saying, but
Mhm.
I can't imagine that
I think what I would
the
do
product team would go that way.
for the cleanliness point, I would just do an execute actions that has a description of token established, and then put all your create update tokens into the execute actions. And I mean, I get what you're saying, Ben, but yeah, that might be I don't know if I'm speaking from my previous hat, knowing where Dale's coming from. I don't see that getting enough um, wind under its wings to get done.
Yeah. But what we're trying gently to say is that Plant an App is uh, has some nope. I think it's all been said. I'm gonna leave it there. Um, I wonder if this construct would work, right? If you and so we have this defaulting mechanism, uh, but by this time it's JavaScript. I'm not sure whether this will evaluate correctly. you should be able to default if is late is empty, it should return false. And so you might be able to skip the creation, but I don't really like it because it's not explicit. So
Yeah.
I'm
I
with you. The
thought I
two-step,
thought that defaulting was only available for query strings.
uh, it's intended to be used it should be available in most places. The ability to default a token is not just
Mhm.
related to query strings. Let's see if we can, uh, let's see if we can go there, since we'll learn something today. Let's do a new test so I don't mess up an old test. Use a form here. So first of all, we should be able to say, if we put a token here, like nonsense into the initial value, nonsense shouldn't exist, doesn't exist. And so we see it's unevaluated. That's interesting. And then if we say provide a default value, let's see if that evaluates. So you see it does. Matt's here, and I didn't leave him sitting long. So you can use a default value in theory anytime. So let's get rid of that and try some more things. If we have a button, and let's try our conditional logic. And so we are going to add does anybody else ever hit this add button and then have to delete out
All the time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we're
I
going to
actually
do,
just did it about 30 seconds ago when I was doing a test. I
yeah.
did exactly that.
So we're going to, if test value is 1, it doesn't matter, but test value, I think, was the name of my token. Yep. So if test value is 1, then we're going to say is valid equals true. And then I'm going to add another token here, result, in a second. And so we want to create update tokens and set result equal what is valid. And so first we'll just show that it works, and then we'll play some more. Matt, you wandered in on us playing a little bit. So if I click the button, no Ajax. And I didn't I didn't do the result. I can't have a short attention span. So I click it and I get is valid. So is valid is being placed in here because my button says we're going to set result equal to is valid, and it didn't get created. So it's an empty token and does what it's supposed to do. If I put 1, then we get true. So my question, one question is, if we say, if we do this, then we should now get true or false. So that works. Now my next question is whether this can be used as a condition in itself. So this should, if it's true, if is valid is true, I'm hoping that this will execute. And so my result is going to be is everyone following me? So let's see if it works or blows up. So yes, it can be used as a condition. So this construct could be used to avoid what you were talking about, Ben, having to initialize and set, but it doesn't read very nicely because you're providing a default, but it looks like an equation, looks like it's doing logic, so it's not nice to glance at. I would still vote for doing it twice.
Yeah, I mean, this is nice to have. The only thing is that if you need to do something like this in multiple locations, it's constantly having to remember to set that default value over and over and over
Absolutely.
again.
Yeah.
Yep.
I use this this functionality, but in this type of situation where I need to pass a value to the form, I usually just establish the token first and with a default value, and then change it if I need to, and in the action stack, so that the form, and then in the form I just put the token, and that way the form always gets the right value. And
So
Extending
well,
this to what I asked originally, it seems to me that I could say for a condition, is valid or is late equals false in brackets like that you have, and expire time greater than date time now, and then my token of is late set to true in the tokens, and I've now established a value for is late all in one create update token action.
right, just so that again, the confusion is that this isn't testing to see whether is valid is false. It's setting a default.
It's setting a default. Exactly.
Right. So
Which is what
syntactically it will work, but I
But
don't like
be
if you click
aware,
or
it's
see.
setting a default here.
in this
It's
one
not
location.
setting is
Yeah.
valid to false elsewhere. So no, you cannot use this to set a default thinking that, well, if it's this and then you put ampersand, ampersand, and something else, that is valid moving forward is going to have a value of false. It was only for this one evaluation.
Correct. It's local.
Yep.
It's
Okay. I thought I had
just from a technique standpoint, whether it's a workflow or an action stack like this, I often initialize all the tokens in one place. So is late, is false, and is provide all the defaults, is whatever way you want to set them, and then do the individual work to flip them below this. But at least you can do all of your initialization in one place.
Okay.
Sometimes it may seem like overkill, but I think it's clean. Like I prefer this over putting, like if I'm getting things from the URL, instead of putting get or query string into the initial values of fields, I always do this instead because I think it's cleaner and everything's in one place and you don't have to go searching for your initial values.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing, and then I'll copy the token names up to the description bar so I can see it without expanding.
Yes,
Yeah.
up here. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yep.
I do a lot
Just
of that.
like that.
Yep. And this same, like I say, the same construct happens a lot in workflows or anywhere else. But I will often have the first action of my workflow being the initialize for whatever. And lots of times it's these true false states, but also it's anything that has a default value that maybe even coming from somewhere else like a token, but just kind of setting them all at first so that you can have that all in one place to look at.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Clarifying question. So I do the same thing as, kind of tie it back to what Patrick said, set them all up in advance in one spot. Now, in this case, you're using on-click handler, but in terms of what Patrick was saying in, say, a form, I think you would do that in the events, correct? To set the form up properly.
Oh, what I was talking about? Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize where we were. But yes, I'm talking about in events. That's where I would
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't A, missing something, or B, there was, some different
Right.
technique
To
I wasn't aware
do
of.
my initial values, I would in events, I would do a create update tokens that has my my field names.
Yep. Okay.
And then establish default values there.
Yeah,
Now,
in
when
fact,
you-
this is what I'm doing with my
Instead of
feature.
this.
Instead of this, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I'm sending somebody to a page, and then on that page, are they too late to fill out this form or not? Basically, is the simple logic behind the page itself. So yeah, I put it in there or the next one, initialize. But I put I'm putting it in there.
So then following that along, so you do this in the initialize, in the events area, initialization, then as far as carrying it through to the fields themselves and then following on to the action stack logic, are you putting them, say in this case, the token name test value, are you putting that in, say, a hidden field in your form?
Well, in this case, Dale, you have a field on your form already called test value, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So in this case, it's not a hidden field, it's a field, but yeah, he's using the field ID and establishing the initial value in the events. And then, if you then test for logic, like if it's instead of creating a new record, it's an edit record, then that later in your in your events initialization action stack, you can change the value of the token, but this is the initial value that and I wouldn't put a condition on this. This create up tokens runs no matter what. And then if it's an edit form, then later in your action stack, the value of test value could get changed.
Okay, thank you. But using, say, the pattern of the default form builder setup, there's usually this is edit in the events section. And then that's inside of the form itself, typically as a hidden field, right? So that's, I guess, where I'm going with this is, do you then take the values that you set up in your initialization area and make them hidden fields.
If it's if it's something I don't want to reveal to the user, yeah. I'm just saying in this case it doesn't need to be a hidden field because it's an actual value in it's an actual field in the form.
Yep.
It just needs you just need to pass it to some field in the form, whether it's a you know, an actual field that's being used in the form or if it's hidden for later use. Then yeah.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies my thinking as well. Thanks.
I'd like to extend that another thought with a question. If we have that scenario where you've got a field on the form and you've filled it this way in the events so that you can carry it forward and use it later, can the user, if they know how to use the developer tool, can they get in there and change those values?
Mm-hmm.
Like I concern myself with two things. One, can they see a value that I really didn't want them to see?
Yeah.
And two, can they change it and then submit the form and it's got a different result?
Yep. A hidden field does not protect you from that.
So that was my understanding, but since we were talking about it, I wanted to say it out loud and confirm it. And in this situation, I will establish my variables on the way in so they can be used in the events stack. But I don't store them on the form. I'll establish those variables again on the submit button so
I do
that
that
they're available but not visible.
I do that too when it's something that, like, if I'm like in my my 2FA stuff that I've talked to you guys before. Absolutely, I'm not storing anything of any value in a hidden field because it's not a protected thing. They can see that and they can change it. Absolutely.
Right, I think that's worth saying out loud. You know?
Yeah,
Nothing,
it is.
Even though it says hidden, that doesn't mean protected.
No.
Not unless
you know,
take
with
the
prompts,
extra step of encrypting it.
Yes, that is certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
And I do that too. Yeah, I store encrypted values in a hidden field as well. Yep, where there's an encryption key that can only be, the encryption can only be decoded on the server. That's the only way. Yep.
You guys are deep.
All right. So where is this hidden field?
Dale, we can't tell you.
do it.
I'm a security risk now.
Use
Right click
Control
on one
F.
of your. Yeah, I would right click on one of your buttons there and do inspect, and that way you get into the form. You're actually into the form setup on your page, and then somewhere down below that or above it, depending on where you put it, there's a form group that has the hidden field in it. Yep, there you go.
And there's its value.
So couldn't this also be solved using set session?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't see that.
Right. So in your form initialization area, you create a token set session, and later on, when you need it in your action stack or wherever, you just pull the session variable.
So,
Yeah, and to clarify, like how I personally use hidden fields, I use hidden fields for things that don't really matter, but help the form accomplish what it needs to accomplish. And if the user went in and changed the value, like they went to all this trouble to change the value of it, all they would be doing is inconveniencing themselves.
Yeah.
That's how I use them.
Me too.
Yeah.
But it's good to say that out loud here.
So hidden fields are good for convenience, but should be viewed if you have a something that needs inherently to be secure or secured from the user, whether it's you don't want them to see it or don't want them to be able to change it, then it's not the right vehicle thing. And all the suggestions that you guys just made, putting them in session, redeveloping them in the next action stacks. So you could, the same way that you could determine them on the way in, you could determine them on the button, but it's extra work, right? Using secure encryption could be used. It's just to
One
you care about.
One thing to note about that, redoing them on the button, is that if you happen to use the value in a condition on a button, that's not going to solve the problem of the fact that the conditions are reevaluated when you click a button. And so in that case, the value really does need to be on the in a field on the form that's that can be reevaluated again when you click the button.
I don't think I followed that. I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
If your hidden field, if the value that you're using, so say you establish a token during form initialization, and then you use the value of that token as a condition on a button, that value,
like a bind expression.
No, just a condition to show the button. So yeah, so just if you use the value that you established during form initialization to conditionally show actually anything on the form, not just a button, to conditionally show anything on the form, you need to have that in the form. You can't run it again when you click the button, because when you click the button, it reevaluates conditions, and then I forget what the situation is. We've talked about it before on this call in the past, but it's really hard to troubleshoot this when it happens. Can anybody back me up on this?
100%.
Yeah,
That's the one thing. It bit
Yeah.
me because show conditionally, I always understood it as it should only be evaluated at form load, and that's it. But
Right,
for
but
some
it's not,
reason,
yeah.
it's being re-evaluated on form submission. And if your value no longer exists because it's out of scope, because you didn't actually store it on the form, if you just use a temporary token value, then that value no longer exists. And when it tries to re-evaluate the show conditionally on a postback, it will crash.
And that's one of the most useful things about hidden fields, is to avoid that from happening.
I'm not sure all of you were on the call last week, so I'll just mention it. We talked about our Forms 2.0 product, and there is now a mechanism to move things from the on init into the later button pushes, the action stacks for the buttons, without them being on the form.
That's a very cool improvement.
Yeah. Things that you develop, you'll be able to say, I want this to be in my context when the button pushes, and they'll be transported encrypted on the form, and so they just magically appear without having to be part of the hidden, and they will be secure as well. So that'll be a nice improvement. As we do this, it occurs to me there's different scopes. There's different scenarios that you're dealing with. A lot of times I deal with, you might be dealing with developing a form for a client where they have to log in, and it's in the client's best interest to, they're just trying to use the thing and they're not trying to hack you. So long as it's a secure form, not a problem. Versus if you're putting out something for public consumption that anybody can get to, and you're relying on hidden fields for security, that's where you need to think deeper, right? There's always layers to that, but in your scenario, you really need to protect against a user that has a credential. They might have the ability to cause damage just by virtue of their rights in the system. So how much do you protect against somebody who already has that? Am I thinking about that wrong?
No, you're right. You have to keep all of that in mind.
And that's why we get together every Friday and talk about this stuff.
There you go. So it was a good question that, Don, going back to, is this a simple question? Well, it's an onion. You know, the first level is easy, and then you get more and more. So 1047, we made it through for the first call question. What else we got going?
You're welcome.
Exactly. You guys make this show easy. I just show up and talk. Anybody else have something?
Well, it's a good thing I showed up then.
Yes, that's great. It's always that exciting. All right, I had a couple of things. Let's see if I can find them. I had a great question. Let's close this out. A couple of had some questions come in, which turned into documentation entries. So within on our documentation site under configuration entities, there's two more topics and another subtopic, and I'll let you know that they're out there. And the email that you got yesterday gave you notice that this is the area that I'm going to be talking about in Low-Code Cafe on Wednesday. So you can add your own indexes, right, to data tables. And so we have never provided guidance what's a good thing to add, what's not a good thing to add, and what happens. So automatically we add indexes that make sense, at least to us, based on the data type. Indexes improve performance, but you might have something that you want to add an index to that we didn't, or have a multi-field index. And if you're SQL savvy enough to do that, you're welcome to do it. And this kind of gives you some idea about what you can do. And then most importantly, there's some information here about if you're trying to rename or delete the entity, that you might run into things that you might have to remove what you did in order to make that happen. So for the most part, it's safe to add those. And then the biggest part of what I'll talk about on Wednesday is that when you have the scenario where you have a text field that is indexed, but a plant and app entity text field is 450 characters wide, you're trying to match that with some other data table that, for example, is trying to join it to something that has the same value, but it's 12 characters wide, and that join ends up making it where you can't take advantage of the index. So number one, demonstrating what the performance hit to that is. I'll show you how to see the performance hit, and then how to go around it, and using a join table, which is documented here. So everything I'm going to talk about is already out in the documentation, but we'll do the practical how to make it happen. Doesn't that sound exciting?
I plan on joining you for that, Dale.
Excellent. Thank you. From the community forum standpoint, there's a couple of topics happening in these last days, and I guess I'll do a mention too about something I just learned, because it's kind of related to this would be a regression in the product in 128 that I'll mention. So we have this row color loses color on grid auto refresh. This was somebody that's saying basically they used, and who's this? Nobody on this call today. They used some JavaScript to cause CSS coloring to happen. So they're applying CSS to an element by whatever logic they care about. And then they've got a an auto refresh happening on the grid and the colors didn't refresh as they expect. And so the JavaScript is running when the form loads, but when the form auto refreshes, the same JavaScript doesn't run. It's a different impact. So my answer to this was, hey, don't you want to use our cool feature? And thanks, by the way, Mark, you got involved in this one. Thanks for helping. But we have documented how to do styling, which allows you to add styling based on, I'm sorry, styles get added to rows, which, no, I'll say it again. Classes get added to rows, which result in coloring, being able to CSS that, and it's much more stable than trying to do it with JavaScript dynamically. So it was an interesting case, and the answer is we've done better in later versions and use that. So before I move on, anybody using these styling elements? I have one.
I haven't yet, and I really want to.
Yeah, same answer.
So this is an example of one where I styled this to highlight every time the last name is Warner. And from I'm logged out, of course I'm logged out. Let's see if I can get back in here. Just to cover this one real quickly, it's so easy to accomplish this kind of styling and avoid JavaScript altogether.
Was this added in late 127 or only in 128?
It's definitely in 127.
It is, okay, all right.
Potentially earlier even, but 127.
Okay.
So in the definition of the listing, in the view data table, you can define, and there's many different ones of these. You should read the documentation, but you can do it at the row level, at the column level, at the cell level. So in this case, we're doing it at the row level, saying that we're going to add a class called last dash and then whatever the last name is. So the result is, if we look at, and we'll go ahead and inspect here and look at the row, the TR, we see that there's a class that's been added as last dash Warner, or if we look at this row, it's last dash new user. Whatever the row is, you're getting a class, and then you can style that thing. So in my case, what are we doing here? Go back to this one, and we can see that there's a class present that's defined last dash Warner equals background color yellow. So seeing this in the easiest way is here we're adding some CSS in the page. So if we wanted, we could do a different one, like, and typically you wouldn't do it based on last name, right? You can do it based on whatever field you want. Oftentimes this would be a status, but I'm going to add a class for, if they're new user, we're going to go with red. And let's see, that's the right syntax, right? Putting some semicolons on there, hopefully. So easy to do. Come on.
And we appears it is
The semicolon goes inside the bracket, not outside.
So I should.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I just make sure you're paying attention. So
it is case sensitive because I see there's another Warner there. It's not.
right. CSS is case sensitive.
Yeah.
So you and from a illustrating standpoint, we should be able to do think this is the syntax. I think we can do both that way.
That's right.
All right, Mark's out there on that branch with me. All right, good. So, yeah, probably typically we wouldn't want to style some freeform text like that. But if you had a status, I use the user table all the time for my examples, so I just use what's there. But if you had a status of, high priority, low priority, and with guaranteed values of high and low or whatever, then that avoids the case issue. So I will mention that just today found this is a 127 system that I'm looking at. We have a 1.28 system, and background color and color somehow got overwritten by some bootstrap stuff at the table level. So this functionality in 127, if we upgraded it to 128, all of a sudden you'd be getting the classes, but the CSS that you need to write would this CSS wouldn't be sufficient to get it to do the coloring that you want. So I'll just mention that we have a bug in 128 or a change, and I assume it's going to be something that we change the CSS so that this goes back to working as expected. Because of the overriding that's happening, you needed a slightly different CSS, which is annoying to have to go and update your CSS to make that continue to work. I think this will continue to work, but it would work that way on 128. I could.
Is that an issue of scope? Could you just put an important on those styles to make them override what the grid is bringing in?
So this is the 128 version. Same thing, but it's running on 128. See how I'm not getting styles? If we inspect this and look at the row, we're getting the same. We're getting the class, but and we're getting the CSS is there to do it, but it's not doing it. And if we, to your question, no.
Okay.
And after a little bit of research, what's happening is that at the TD level, I found that that we have these background color ones that if you disable, or the color one, so this setting, table not caption whatever, and I don't know why this exists, is something coming out of Bootstrap. So there might have been a revision to Bootstrap that bit us here, but for whatever reason these are overriding the pure class, which I don't really understand, but that's the impact. And so got to figure. People that are smarter than I will have to figure out what was being accomplished there and whether we can override it. Again, since it's coming out of Bootstrap, I think this is probably something that we didn't anticipate us. It's kind of one of those things very hard to see around this particular corner. Annoying certainly from a client perspective. I had this thing working, I upgraded, now it doesn't work, but I think it's going to turn out to be a component piece that we might not have had control over. So it's unfortunate. Okay, so I think we've made our hour. We have. Nothing new in contributions, so I'm going to skip right on past that. We're glad that you spent the hour with us. We'll do this all over again next Friday, and hopefully I'll get a critique on what I did on Wednesday with the indexing and whether or not it's of any value. But regardless, we will see you next Friday, this same hour, and thanks for joining today.
Thanks, Dale.